The farmer I'm talking about is buying fertilizer from Canada, not from China. So I'm hearing you, and basically you're saying everything's going to be fine because the folks on whom the tariffs are imposed are going to eat that additional cost and not pass it on to the consumer. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Or the fertilizer producer in Canada will eat it to sell to your farmer, and I think it's very.
We'll see. I get it. We disagree on that.
Yes, but thus far the empirical data is with me.
All right. This is sort of pretty hopeful on your part, and I'd say not particularly realistic. Second thing, one of the things that Vermonters are telling me, and everyone from farmers to businesses, is they need some stability and predictability. You'd agree with me that predictability and stability is absolutely essential for the well-being of an enterprise.
That's why I'd encourage you to vote for the tax bill and give great stability and predictability for taxes.
I'll take that. I'll take that advice under consideration.
Okay.
In today's hearing, a senator pressed the Treasury Secretary on one of the most important questions facing American families and businesses. Who actually pays for tariffs? Are the costs absorbed by foreign governments and corporations? Or do farmers, manufacturers, and everyday consumers end up shouldering the burden? What followed was a tense back and forth that revealed the divide between Washington's talking points and the reality on the ground.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Is it the position of the Department of the Treasury that the cost of these tariffs will not be borne by the consumers of this country?
It is the empirical evidence so far that they have not been, and we think that it is likely that they do not have to be.
So when Walmart says it's raising prices to reflect the increased cost that they have to pay for the product as a result of the tariff, you disagree with that?
I agree that Walmart will do what is best for their customer, and as I have repeatedly said, this is not an advertisement for Amazon or Home Depot, but they've announced that they will not be raising prices, so my family will be shopping there.
So when I talk to a manufacturer in Vermont that has 300 employees, and they are now paying more for steel and aluminum components, and they tell me with their margins that they will have to increase the price to the ultimate consumer. You disagree with that manufacturer from Vermont?
I agree that the economy, or believe that the economy is a diverse ecosystem, and for the manufacturer you're talking to in Vermont, that there will be price decreases elsewhere, and that I was at a rally in Pittsburgh, and there will be more steel jobs.
Well, that's a different issue. I'm talking about who's going to pay the price if there's a 50% increase in the tariff.
Senator, thus far, that the critics of the tariffs, first we heard there's going to be a terrible recession, and the economic numbers have been robust. And then we heard there's going to be great inflation, and the inflation numbers overall are 0.1%.
Right, but my question, I'm a manufacturer, or I'm a farmer. I'm paying 25% more for fertilizer. My margin is tiny, 3 or 4%. And me as a farmer producer have to pay more for my inputs. You're telling me that I have to eat that cost, and I am not going to be absolutely required for my own survival to increase the cost to reflect the tariff that I pay.
Senator, I am happy to send you 2 articles, one from the Wall Street Journal, one from a Bloomberg columnist admitting yesterday that he has been surprised by the lack of inflation in the system, and the Wall Street Journal article saying, and this has been my supposition, that the Chinese business model is full of state subsidies. They do not care what they pay. It is a jobs program, so they will eat the tariffs.
Well, the farmer, the farmer I'm talking about is buying fertilizer from Canada, not from China. So I'm hearing you, and basically you're saying everything's going to be fine because the folks that on whom the tariffs are imposed are going to eat that additional cost and not pass it on to the consumer. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Or the fertilizer producer in Canada will eat it to sell to your farmer, and I think it's very.
We'll see. I get it. We disagree on that.
Yes, but thus far the empirical data is with me.
All right. This is sort of pretty hopeful on your part, and I'd say not particularly realistic. Second thing, one of the things that Vermonters are telling me, and everyone from farmers to businesses, is they need some stability and predictability. You'd agree with me that predictability and stability is absolutely essential for the well-being of an enterprise.
That's why I'd encourage you to vote for the tax bill and give great stability and predictability for taxes.
I'll take that. I'll take that advice under consideration, as they say, Mr. Chairman. But let me ask you this: predictability and predictability. The Trump tariff timelines. February 1, executive order, 10% on China, 25% on Mexico and Canada. February 3, 30-day pause on 25% tariffs from Mexico and Canada. February 10, 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum. March 4, an additional 10% on China, 25% on Mexico and Canada. This goes on and on. 22 different tariffs. And it looks like the president wakes up, kind of checks his mood, and changes the tariff regime. And I've talked to manufacturers where they've had products coming in to a port, and if they arrive on Monday, they're cool. If they arrive on Wednesday, it's going to cost them another $75,000. Just in terms of implementation, 22 different tariffs over the course of a few months.
Good.
Does that help? I'm mindful. This will be my last question.
Yeah, I'm just saying, Senator, if you're familiar with game theory, it's called strategic uncertainty, and it's also called negotiations. 13 days ago, on a Friday, President Trump threatened the EU with 50% tariffs. The EU was not negotiating in good faith. Within 10 hours, we had calls from 5 European leaders and a call with Ursula von der Leyen. So you may call this a flip-flop. I call this a negotiating strategy, and this is the way negotiating strategies work.
The Vermonters call this pretty painful, and it's a way to run their business. Thank you.
The hearing opened with a straightforward but difficult question. When tariffs go up, who actually pays the cost? The Treasury Secretary argued that, so far, the data shows tariffs have not significantly raised prices for American consumers. He pointed to major retailers like Amazon and Home Depot, which announced they would not increase prices despite new tariffs. In his view, competition and foreign subsidies mean that overseas producers often absorb the cost, rather than passing it on to U.S. families. The senator pushed back with examples from his own state. A manufacturer employing 300 people reported that higher steel and aluminum costs left them no choice but to raise their prices. Farmers explained they were already struggling with thin margins and now faced a 25% increase in the cost of fertilizer. The senator asked bluntly, "Are you saying these businesses must simply swallow those costs without passing them to consumers?" The Treasury Secretary held firm. He said China's system, heavily subsidized by the state, means Chinese producers can afford to eat the tariffs. He even suggested Canadian fertilizer suppliers might reduce their profit margins to keep selling to American buyers. The senator replied that such an outcome seemed more hopeful than realistic. The conversation then turned to predictability. The senator argued that stability is critical for businesses making long-term investments. Yet under the current administration's approach, tariffs appeared to change almost weekly, 22 separate shifts in a matter of months. One company found that if a shipment arrived on Monday, it avoided tariffs, but if it landed Wednesday, the bill jumped by $75,000. For local businesses, this unpredictability was costly and disruptive. The Treasury Secretary defended the changes as deliberate strategic uncertainty. Drawing from game theory, he described unpredictability as a negotiation tactic, keeping trading partners off balance. As an example, he noted that after the president threatened high tariffs on the European Union, 5 European leaders called within hours to reopen talks. The senator acknowledged the strategy, but emphasized the downside. What feels like leverage in international negotiations looks like chaos to farmers and manufacturers trying to plan their operations. For them, tariffs are not abstract tools. They directly affect whether they can stay in business. In the end, the two sides remained divided. The Treasury saw tariffs as a way to strengthen U.S. bargaining power without hurting consumers. The senator insisted that for farmers, small manufacturers, and families, the burden was already real. This hearing underscored how trade policy isn't just about abstract numbers, it's about people. Farmers deciding whether they can plant next season. Manufacturers wondering if they can keep their employees. Families questioning why groceries or tools cost more than last year. Tariffs may be a tool of leverage, but for millions of Americans, they're also a daily calculation. As Washington debates strategy, the question remains, who really pays?